The road to the 11th annual Snickers Cup Series Daytona 500 continues here with the running of the first of two Budweiser Duels. Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome here as we get set to find out what the rest of the Daytona 500 starting grid will be looking like as we prepare for the first of our two Budweiser Duels here today. The Daytona 500 pole sitter Austin LaPlante will start on the pole position for this first Budweiser Duel alongside of Bob Jones, who was the third fastest, well actually he was fourth fastest, but technically third fastest of the drivers that didn't have to go to backup cars, and he'll start on the outside of the front row. There are three different things that are going to be tried to accomplish here today by certain drivers. For Austin LaPlante, his goal is just to survive this race. Whether he wins this event or whether he finishes dead last, as long as he's still running and doesn't have to go to a backup car, he still will start on the pole for the Daytona 500. For Bob Jones on back, for the drivers that are locked into the 500 grid so far, they're trying to improve their starting position. The driver that wins this event, if it's not Austin LaPlante, will start on the inside of row number 2 for the Great American Race. But there are other drivers back starting further in the field that definitely want to get themselves up here to the front, because out of 3 possible spots available in the Daytona 500 in this race, 2 of them are already going to be filled by drivers that are going to use owner points provisionals, Dylan Young and Charles Jackson, which means for everybody else that's not locked into the 500, only one other driver will transfer in this event.
Drivers, start your engines!
There is the command to fire up the engines. We'll show you now your starting grid for this, the first of the 2 Budweiser Duels. So technically, the drivers that are not locked in from pretty much from Armando Shazaz on back are battling for 1 transfer spot, because Dylan Young, Charles Jackson, they're going to be utilizing their owner points provisionals. So it's going to come down between Shazaz and all those others who are not yet locked in that are back behind him to try and get that 1 final transfer spot. How is it determined? The highest finishing of those drivers when this 10-lap segment has come to a close. Basically, most of this weekend it's been all about speed. Now it's about track position. The pace car peels off. Austin LaPlante, Bob Jones get us underway. Green flag is out here in the first Budweiser Duel. Also worth mentioning, now NNSCRA has mandated the use of the restrictor plate. All the other events we've had up to this point during speed weeks, the restrictor plate track has not been enforced, but now that they're in a big pack of cars for the remainder of this weekend leading up to the Great American Race, they are having to use the restrictor plate. Austin LaPlante moving up to the high side there. We're probably going to see the 43 make a very speedy exit from the front and try and move towards the back to try and stay out of trouble. Austin Mongold will move by for the top position. Please ignore the fact that the Austin Mongold name up on the top left has the rookie thing still on it. I will make the change on that before the Daytona 500 for sure. Mongold, this is actually his second Daytona 500 that he's making, so he's not a rookie anymore. As here comes Chris Dollerton up the inside line, trying to look to see who would be the one to take that transfer slot at the current time. Looks like it would be Armando Shazaz right now in the 19. He's on the inside line. Zachary Fitzwater right behind him. Keep in mind, too, I've already mentioned that Charles Jackson, Dylan Young, they are both able to use owner points provisionals to get into the Great American Race, but if the 2 of them could finish in the top 3, then they wouldn't have to use that. Right now, I think Dylan Young is currently running 3rd out of those drivers that are trying to transfer in. It's Shazaz, Fitzwater, and Young. However, Fitzwater would be eliminated due to Charles Jackson utilizing the owner points provisional. He also could utilize a championship provisional too, could Charles Jackson. Whichever the case, though, it doesn't really matter. He's going to be in the 500 regardless. It's Mongold, Norman. Pete Hugh London now steps out of line with help from Benjamin Miles. And keep in mind, the 24 Benjamin Miles, that is a backup machine. He was involved in a hard wreck in the group qualifying session here. as was Nathan Hudson, who's now to his inside. There is Levi McIntyre, former Daytona 500 winner, raced his way in via time, so he'll be in the 500. And right now, there is the guy that currently sits in the transfer spot. Armando Shazaz in the 19, Zachary Fitzwater right behind him in the 29. Those two are the two right at the moment fighting for that final transfer spot. John Arndt in the 01. Couple cars back there, and Jonathan Zorling in the 83 also. Going to try and get up here and fight for that spot as Mongold continues to hold him off up here at the front. And apparently I've had this thing on fastest lap this whole time. Well, at least you know Dylan Young has turned the fastest lap of this race. 4 laps completed, on to lap 5. We're focusing on this part of the field because this is where that transfer spot really is going to come into play. Right now the 19 holds it, the 29 wants it. You see Austin LaPlante still up there on the high side. He's just trying to drop to the back if he can. All he's got to do is make it around this track 10 times in one piece, and he still starts in the pole position for the Great American Race. Fitzwater moves to the inside. 3 wide with the 19 of Armando Shazaz. This is a battle for that transfer spot. Fitzwater will have the advantage coming off of turn 4 here. And right now it would be Zachary Fitzwater who would transfer into the Daytona 500. That time at the line, who led there? I think, yeah, they're saying Armando did beat Fitzwater at the line. Fitzwater trying to get some help here from Dylan Young, and now he moves into the transfer position. So now our 3 transfer drivers from Budweiser Duel number 1 would be Dylan Young, Charles Jackson, and Zachary Fitzwater. Now John Arndt, Jonathan Zorling on that inside line need to work with Dylan Young to reel in the 29, but the 29 is going to try and go for 4th place off of Benjamin Miles. Trying to get ahead of those other guys. Put some cars between him, some distance between him. As Mongold continues to lead, Levi McIntyre now, as Michael Norman moves underneath him for 2nd. And look at Fitzwater. Fitzwater's got a plan. As soon as he broke free, he is up here with the top 4, and he's looking really good to move his way into the Great American Race. Car he has to worry about right now is the 01 of John Arndt and the 83 of Jonathan Zorling. Dylan Young's not going to pose much of a threat to him as far as taking away his transfer spot because Dylan Young's already going to get into the Great American Race via owner points. Here comes Fitzwater. Could Zachary Fitzwater, who's in a must-transfer situation, win this thing and be starting 3rd for the Daytona 500? He's now up to 2nd. You notice some other drivers back there, DJ Curtis, James Shelley, drivers that are already locked into the Daytona 500, just running at the back, making sure they don't have to go to backup machines. John Arndt is now up into 4th. Zorling now looking for 5th off of Michael Norman. They've got to get by Dylan Young before they can concentrate on Zachary Fitzwater, but time is running out. Is Arndt going to make a move? Will Zorling go with him? They're not close enough to make a move on Dylan Young. Now Fitzwater has to hope Dylan Young doesn't hang him out to dry, but Dylan Young does. Dylan Young moves low on Fitzwater. Dylan Young wants to get good track position for qualifying for the 500, and now here comes Jonathan Zorling to the inside of Zachary Fitzwater for the transfer position. And Zorling's got it. So now it's Jonathan Zorling into the transfer slot. 2 to go here in the first Budweiser Duel. And Zorling looks for more, going to the inside of Dylan Young. Now the 2nd car would be William Brock in the 13. Can he reel in the 83? Working there with Michael Norman. There's Charles Jackson, Dylan Young. They're both up here. They may not even have to rely on owner points provisionals. Zorlin all over the back bumper of Mongold, who's done a great job of pacing this field. Coming to the white flag, it's going to be Zorling in the 83, William Brock in the 13. Those are going to be the 2 to decide who transfers into the Great American Race. And Brock gets kicked up to the high side by Bob Jones. That's good news there for Jonathan Zorling. He's got Mongold ahead of him, Norman behind him, Next car that would even be close enough to challenge him would be Trek Togger, but he's 6th right now, battling for 6th with William Brock. Jonathan Zorlin looking very good right now. His chances of making the 500 just seem to increase by the second. Into turns 3 and 4 for the final time. What a dominating performance by Austin Mongold. He will be starting 3rd for the Great American Race, and Jonathan Zorlin will finish 2nd here in this duel. He transfers into the Daytona 500 for Burger King Racing. Race standings should be complete. All 10 laps run under green. And there you have it. LaPlante was able to survive. Austin LaPlante finishing out this race all the way back in 17th, but it doesn't matter. Since he survived, didn't go to a backup car, didn't get caught up in a wreck, he starts on the pole for the Great American Race. Mongold will start this race, the Daytona 500, in 3rd. Jonathan Zorling will transfer in that final transfer spot in this duel. Finishing 2nd, he will start 5th in the Great American Race. Bob Jones will start 7th, and Anthony McCurry will start in 9th. Trek Togger, 5th place today, but it won't be enough for him to transfer into the Daytona 500. Dylan Young finishes 10th. He'll have to use his owner points provisional to get into the Great American Race. Same for Charles Jackson, who finishes in 12th. So your 3 transfer drivers from this race are Jonathan Zorling in the 83, Dylan Young in the 2, and Charles Jackson in the 54, which means the drivers that will not take part in the Daytona 500 this season include Trek Togger, Noah Ponser, William Brock, Daniel McIntosh, John Arndt, Armando Shazaz. Looking further down here, Zachary Fitzwater, and I believe that may be it. So those are the drivers that will not start the Daytona 500. I'll have the official results and everything for who made it, who didn't, after the second Budweiser Duel, which is coming up next. So don't go away. We'll find out who transfers in the second Budweiser Duel, as we're almost done completing the 42-car field for the Great American Race Daytona 500. So now as we prepare for Budweiser Duel number 2, a little bit different of a situation. Now what actually took place was there was a random.org thing where it decided whether or not it was going to be 3 drivers transferring in the first duel and 4 in the second duel, or 4 in the first duel and 3 in the second duel. And according to random.org, it chose Budweiser Duel number 2 to be the one to have 4 drivers transfer into the Great American Race. Now, the difference between this duel and the other duel is in duel number 1, there were only 3 available transfer spots. 2 of them were basically already claimed by owner points provisionals for Dylan Young and Charles Jackson. However, in this one, there are only 2 drivers in this field that are going to be able to use the owner points provisionals, which would be Kyle Matthews in the 42, James McLeod in the 51, which means 2 drivers that are not locked in are going to race their way into the Great American Race here today. Chris Washer was second fastest in the group qualifying session. He will start on the pole position for Budweiser Duel number 2. His goal, the same as Austin LaPlante's was, and that's just survive, not get involved in a wreck, not have to go to a backup car, and he will start on the front row for the Great American Race alongside of Austin LaPlante, who managed to survive his Budweiser Duel. Then you got Lyndon Wright in the Ford Taurus alongside of him, Trent Dunham, Johnny Gardner there in row 2. For them, they're just trying to increase their starting position for the Great American Race, and then
Start your engine.
And then from further on back, drivers that got their way into this 500 by being in the top 8 in speeds during the group qualifying, and then the drivers that are not yet locked in. And we'll document all of that during the course of this Budweiser Duel, just like we did in Budweiser Duel number 1. As you're looking at your starting lineup for Budweiser Duel number 2. Quite a few drivers in this field too that had to go to backup cars after the group qualifying, including William Duncan, John Citadino, Cody Lamas, Jessica Shelton, So this is a great opportunity for them in those backup cars to be able to try and work their way up towards the front for the start of the Daytona 500. I believe from Simon Salera on back, those are the drivers that are not yet locked in to the 42 car starting grid. Here we go though. Chris Washer, Lyndon Wright, Budweiser Duel number 2 is green at Daytona. So when they crossed the line to start this race, the 2 transfer spots were currently held in this starting grid by Simon Salera and Ian Dutta. That will undoubtedly change during the course of this 10-lap race. Salera actually jumping up to the high line. Much like we did in Budweiser Duel number 1, we'll be focusing more mid-pack than we will at the front of the field as we watch the battle for the 2 potential transfer spots, as 2 of those 4 potential transfer spots are pretty much going to be taken by McLeod and Matthews, and Chris Washer will lead the first lap. So it doesn't look like Chris Washer's following the same strategy that Austin LaPlante did in Budweiser Duel number 1. LaPlante very quickly gave up the lead, dropped to mid-pack, dropped to the back of the field to stay out of trouble. Chris Washer seems to feel that the safest place on track to not get wrecked is out in front. We're going to drop back here to the 78 of Simon Salera. There he is. Right now he holds the first transfer spot. Second transfer spot would be held by Luis Hernandez at the current moment, as he's just moved by Keon Eddington, taking that second transfer spot at the moment. Next in line would be Rohit Arbu, right behind the 88. And it looks like one car's already lost the draft there. That's the 28 of Zach Flickinger. I don't know if he lost the draft or not. If he has, that ends his chances of making the 500. As right now it's the 78, the 88, the 20, 39. Those are the ones right now that are up here battling for those 2 transfer positions. Chris Washer continuing to lead this thing. Now, if Chris Washer wins this race, that doesn't improve his position at all. Just means he's still going to start on the outside of the front row for the Daytona 500. Trying to remember if we've ever had a driver that qualified in Group Q or qualified during qualifying for the Daytona 500 ever actually win one of the Budweiser Duels. I don't think we have in Snickers Cup Series history. Rohit Arbu trying to get by Luis Hernandez. That's for that second transfer spot. Luis trying to get by Salera to take transfer spot number 1. And now here comes Keon Eddington, 3 wide with Rohit Arbu. So now Arbu gonna lose out on the opportunity, at least at this point, to try and get up there into one of the 2 transfer spots. And Flickinger has clearly lost the draft. Zach Flickinger, his Daytona 500 chances going further and further away from him, as he is clearly not in the draft of this lead pack anymore. At the front, you got Chris Washer. Then you got Charles Sanford, Cody Lamas, and Jessica Shelton. There's an opportunity there for teammates to work together from RRE. If I'm Luis Hernandez, I think I'd be pretty content to just keep pushing that 78 on the inside line, because at the moment, he's got a bit of a buffer between himself and the next driver trying to battle for that transfer spot, the 39 of Keon Eddington. They got the car of Johnny Gardner between themselves and him. And if they continue to run the way they are, both Salera and Hernandez will be making the Great American Race. Oh boy, Salera just moved up to the high side. That may not have been the wisest move. Hernandez now moves down low. Salera's got to hope that outside line gets going here, or else Eddington, Aaron Henderson's there, and there's another car behind him. Oh, I thought that was Ian Dutta, but it isn't. So Luis Hernandez now moves into the number 1 transfer slot. Salera's got to hope that nobody gets him on the inside line, but here comes Eddington in the 39. Inside line's getting a full head of steam as Luis Hernandez now up to third. Almost kind of looking like what Jonathan Zorling was doing in Budweiser Duel number 1. Once he got clear of everybody, he just started fighting his way to the front. Zorling transferred his way into the 500 by finishing second in Budweiser Duel number 1. And Kian Eddington has just taken the second transfer spot from Simon Salera. That choice to switch up to the high line may come back to bite the driver of the 78. So now it is Eddington who is into the second transfer spot, and he's got a rear deck lid full of Aaron Henderson in the 11. Three laps to go here in the second Budweiser Duel. Luis Hernandez, his chances of winning very good, as now he's behind his Hendrick Motorsports teammate Chris Washer. Kian Eddington right now in the second transfer slot, the 11 of Henderson trying to take it. Ooh, Henderson peeking out of line there. The one person Henderson would love to see in his rearview mirror is his teammate in the 18, Jacob Lawler. Lawler maybe could help Henderson get by Kian Eddington. Trying to see if Eddington's got any teammates he can work with. 41 of Liam Ervig is quite a ways back there, though. Henderson thought about it. Eddington through the block. 2 to go. Luis Hernandez seems content to push his teammate Chris Washer around. John Citadino there in third. Johnny Gardner in fourth. It's Eddington and Henderson that are battling for that final transfer position. Here comes Henderson. He's got Cody Lamas down there with him. Can he get to the left rear of the 39? Citadino now moves down low. And here comes Henderson. Is he going to get to the inside? He is! He does get to the inside. And Henderson moves by for the second spot. Now he goes for the first spot underneath Luis Hernandez, who also was caught up on the high line. This isn't over yet. Henderson is now in the number 1 transfer position. White flag displayed. Can anybody make any kind of a charge here late to get that second transfer spot? Eddington now thinking about going 3 wide with Hernandez. Will Cody Lamas help his teammate in the 88? Henderson's now in control of the first transfer spot. The battle for the second one may be between Luis Hernandez, Kian Eddington. Look at Luis. Will Cody let him in? Cody didn't let him in. Now Luis in the middle line, but that may still help him. There's nobody coming up the inside line with the exception of Liam Ervig, but he's not really close enough. And Henderson gets by for the lead. Coming down to the stripe, Aaron Henderson races his way into the Daytona 500, and I believe Luis Hernandez got the second transfer spot. Yes, he did. Chris Washer, I think, led every single lap except the last one. Aaron Henderson, right place, right time. He not only wins the Budweiser Duel number 2, he transfers his way into the Daytona 500 and will start the Great American Race in the 4th position. Wow. How about Aaron Henderson, a driver who had to go to a backup car after he wrecked in the initial practice session for the drivers who were not yet locked into the Great American Race. This is a backup car that he won in. Chris Washer, second place. That means he's going to be starting on the outside of the front row for the Daytona 500 as he survives. Look at the Hendrick cars that came up here at the end. Cody Lamas finishing third, Luis Hernandez in fourth, which means Henderson will start the 500 in fourth, Cody Lamas will start sixth, Luis Hernandez will start eighth, and Jacob Lawler will complete the top 10 in the 18. Just missing out, just missing the show will be the 39 of Kian Eddington. He just barely misses making the Daytona 500. Liam Ervig will also not be qualifying for the 500, along with Rohit Vidaravu, Simon Salera, Ian Dutta, Elijah Gordon, and Zach Flickinger. James McLeod, he'll use his owner points provisional to get into the show as he finished 19th. Kyle Matthews will also do the same as he finished this race in 22nd. So, from the two Budweiser Duels, the 7 drivers that transfer their way into the Great American Race are Jonathan Zorling, Aaron Henderson, Luis Hernandez, Kyle Matthews, Dylan Young, Charles Jackson, and James McLeod. Thank you all so much for watching. Your starting lineup for the Daytona 500, the way they all stacked up, will be coming up right after this. See who made the show, see who didn't. Thank you once again, everybody, for watching here. We'll see you guys as our next time we are going to be having the Great American Race Daytona 500 here for the 11th time in Snickers Cup Series history. You won't want to miss it. I'll see you guys there. You've been watching a production of the NNSCRA, All Flying Racing at its best.